Kale had never imagined his life would lead him here on the luminous bridge of a starship, orbiting a planet so foreign that even the air seemed alien through the ship's life support systems. Yet, here he was, assigned as the personal guard to Princess Lyra, the young heir of the Valdara Dominion, a civilization whose power stretched across multiple star systems. Humanity had been invited into their sphere, not as equals, but as valued allies, and Kale had been chosen because of his skill, loyalty, and, perhaps, this stubborn human nature that could not be broken easily. Lyra, barely 19 by human standards, had a presence that demanded attention without even trying. Her hair shimmered like liquid silver, eyes deep violet, reflecting the starlight around them, and her voice, when she spoke, carried the authority of someone born to command yet softened by a quiet kindness. Most of the Valdara court whispered about her beauty or her youth, but Kale's focus was always on her safety. It had started simply. Kale's orders were to ensure she was never in harm's way, whether in public appearances or diplomatic negotiations. The Valdara were famous for their political intrigue, and even a minor insult could spiral into a war between factions. Kale had trained for years to read threats, to anticipate danger before it arrived, and in his early days he had relied purely on instinct. But with Lyra, he realized that guarding someone wasn't just about physical protection, it was about understanding them, predicting moods, and sometimes shielding them from themselves. One morning, Kale accompanied Lyra to the council chambers, where representatives from dozens of planets were gathered. The Valdara queen, Lyra's mother, presided from a high dais, her presence commanding silence with just a glance. She was legendary not only for her political cunning but for her ruthless efficiency in crushing threats. Kale had met her only once before, and the memory of that encounter still made his stomach tighten. The queen's gaze seemed to pierce through his very soul, judging every thought, every hesitation. That as Lyra spoke with the delegates, Kale scanned the crowd. His instincts tingled a subtle shift in posture, a hand brushing the edge of a weapon hidden beneath a cloak, the micro-expressions of those who were not allies. Kale had faced mercenaries, pirates, even alien warlords, but the quiet tension in that room suggested something far more dangerous. Yet when he whispered his concerns to Lyra, she merely smiled, a gentle acknowledgement that she trusted him. And yet, she was so unaware of how dangerous the room truly was, he thought. The meeting ended without incident, but as they left, Kale noticed the subtle change in the queen's demeanor. Her eyes lingered on him, sharp and calculating. It was not a look of gratitude for keeping her daughter safe. It was a challenge, almost a warning. Kale understood then that his role as Lyra's guard had become far more complex. It was no longer just about protecting her from external threats. He was now entangled in court politics, a pawn in a game where the stakes were life and death. Days turned into weeks, and Kale's routine became both mundane and extraordinary. He trained with Lyra, helping her improve her reflexes and awareness. He walked beside her through gardens that glowed under bioluminescent flora, their conversations light, teasing, yet layered with an unspoken understanding of danger. He was a human, and she was an alien princess. Yet somehow, they found a rhythm, a partnership forged not through duty alone but through trust. One evening, the palace gardens were alive with light from twin moons, and Kale and Lyra walked in silence. The air was crisp, carrying a scent unfamiliar yet intoxicating. Lyra finally spoke, her voice softer than usual. "Do you ever wonder what it's like to live freely, without walls, without eyes watching every move?" she asked. Kale considered the question. Freedom, in its purest sense, had been a luxury he never truly known. "I've protected people I didn't even know. I've fought battles that weren't mine," he said. "But yes, sometimes I wonder what it would feel like to just exist, without responsibility." Lyra glanced at him, eyes reflecting the moon's glow. "I envy that," she said. "Everyone expects something from me. Every action, every word, every breath is measured. Sometimes I wish I could disappear." Kale felt a surge of protectiveness. He wanted to promise her the world, to tell her that she didn't have to face any of this alone. But he only nodded. "You're not alone. I'll make sure of that," he said quietly. It was then that the danger arrived. A week later, Kale detected an anomaly during one of his routine perimeter scans. A stealth ship, cloaked beyond the detection threshold of most Valdara sensors, drifted toward the planet. Whoever piloted it was skilled, moving silently yet deliberately, targeting the palace specifically. Kale's mind raced. This was no random act. Someone wanted Lyra. He alerted the Security Council, but before they could act, the cloaked ship released a small strike pod that slipped through defenses. Kale was ready. In seconds, he activated the palace's emergency shields and pulled Lyra into a secure corridor. The explosion rocked the outer gardens, sending shivers through the entire structure. Smoke and debris filled the air, and alarms echoed like the cries of the planet itself. Kale's training kicked in fully as react, protect. Lyra didn't scream. She never did. Instead, she clutched his arm, her trust evident. "Kale, what now?" she asked calmly. "Now we make sure you survive," he replied. "Then we find out who dared to touch the Princess of Valdara." The next few days were a blur. Investigations revealed that the attack was orchestrated by a faction of Valdara nobles who sought to control Lyra's future. They wanted to force her into a political marriage, consolidating power through manipulation. The queen, however, had her own plans. When Kale tried to discuss the threat with her, she smiled, not the warm smile of a mother, but the cold, calculating smile of a ruler. "You are very effective," she said, her gaze lingering on him. "I wonder if you understand that protecting Lyra also makes you invaluable to me." Kale's instincts bristled. He knew that beneath the compliment lay a subtle threat. The queen wasn't going to let anyone remove her daughter from her influence, not even Kale, and he realized then that his role had shifted again. It wasn't just protection from outsiders. It was containment within the palace walls, under the queen's scrutiny. Weeks passed, and the tension grew. Kale found himself walking a fine line between loyalty to Lyra and the subtle demands of the queen. He trained harder, honed his senses, and even began studying Valdara culture more deeply. He needed to understand not just the language but the unspoken rules, the rituals, the subtle power plays that governed every interaction in the palace life. Despite the danger and intrigue around her, they began to rely on Kale in ways that went beyond duty. She would confide small secrets, share fleeting dreams of adventure beyond the stars, and sometimes, when no one was watching, she would reach for his hand. It was always brief, always tentative, yet it carried weight. An unspoken acknowledgement of trust, and perhaps something more. Kale felt the stirrings of emotions he had tried to suppress. He was a human, alone in a world of aliens, trained to guard, trained to fight, trained to survive. He had never imagined that he could care so deeply for someone who was not his own species, someone whose life was entwined with politics, danger, and a future he could never fully influence. The climax came during a grand ceremony meant to honor Lyra's coming of age, a tradition marking her readiness to assume her responsibilities. The palace was filled with dignitaries, their costumes glittering under the artificial suns of the hall. Kale noticed immediately the subtle gestures of several attendees' hands brushing hidden weapons, eyes scanning exits and entries. Something was wrong. Kale positioned himself beside Lyra, his senses stretched to their limits. When the queen ascended the dais, the crowd erupted in applause. Kale's attention, however, was fixed on the shadows. A group of cloaked figures surged forward, weapons drawn, and the hall erupted into chaos. Kale moved faster than thought, blocking blades, deflecting energy bursts, pushing Lyra behind him. He fought with a precision that was almost terrifying, every movement calculated to protect her at all costs. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos, firm and commanding. "Kale, now." She activated a concealed emergency signal, calling the royal guards. Reinforcements arrived, and within moments the attackers were subdued. But the message was clear: the threat was closer, more organized, and more dangerous than ever. After the battle, the queen approached Kale, her presence as imposing as ever. "You have done well," she said, placing a hand briefly on his shoulder. "But understand this: your service is not over. You belong here with Lyra, under my watchful eyes. She will not leave, and neither will you." Kale understood. The queen wasn't just asserting control over Lyra. She was claiming him too. And yet, despite the tension, he did not hesitate. His choice was clear. He would stay. He would guard Lyra, not because he was ordered to, but because he wanted to. Because he could not imagine letting her face the dangers of the galaxy alone. Lyra, sensing his resolve, smiled a small, genuine smile that carried relief, trust, and perhaps affection. "Then we face it together," she said.